five senses of the physical body. And, you know, the gods can still perceive him. They are more subtle. And these higher souls, these oversouls that we talk about on this channel, the Anunnaki that are of the Sumerians, the elders that are mentioned that guide the cycles of reincarnation in the books of Journeys of Souls, and the masters that Brian Weiss talks about in his books of the messages of the masters and many lives, many masters. These masters are oversouls, these 72 oversouls. They can perceive us, but no longer can Adam perceive where he was before in this paradisical garden. He is now in a realm of death and suffering and is shut off from the perception, his perception of God. We are subject to the five senses. Now everything that we perceive is filtered through the organism of our senses and brain. The true light and energy of the soul, of which Adam was first created in this realm where souls are to be created, and when we first became self-aware, including the 72 angel oversouls who had existed for billions of years before they created humans here, human souls. We're shut off from the perception of this higher realm, and shut off from the presence of God. One of the things that is also mentioned in this allegory that's very important is that God also, the gods, the 72 oversouls, after Adam has quote unquote fallen, he is barred from another tree in the garden that is separate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It is called the tree of life, of everlasting life. And they put angels and cherubims around it in the allegory. And they say, lest he partake of it and lives forever in his sins. His sins are his perceptions of good and evil. Lest Adam should forever have everlasting life as a soul, just like the oversouls who created him have an everlasting life, and live forever with these perceptions of suffering and pain in the lower realms. They didn't want him to have everlasting life. So they bar the tree of life from him, on top of his losing his perception of their realm, of the metaphorical Garden of Eden. Now he can no longer even have eternal life within the self that he is anymore. He must die physically, and after his physical death, he is barred from the tree of everlasting life. And we've talked about this on other videos of the channel. And the reason why is because after a soul creates a brand new soul in these higher realms of the astral, these paradisical realms, one of these oversouls creates a brand new soul out of the dust, out of the self. This soul is now separate from this oversoul. And as you are then instructed to attach yourself to matter, they'll say this is how you become free. You'll become like the gods and know good and evil. Attach yourself to this matter through the snake of the serpent of DNA. And they don't tell you, though, that now that you do this, we are going to bar the tree of life from you forever. What they're actually saying is that after your particular incarnation is over, the everlasting life of forever living as a soul like them, the ones who created you, comes to an end because you give your experiences back to this soul that says, I am your higher self. Presents itself, this other soul that creates you, these oversouls, I am your higher self, they say. And then you become one with them. When you become one with them, you no longer can act for yourself again within time and space. And everything you've experienced now in that incarnation of being bound to matter is now given to that soul that presents itself as your higher self within time and space. And now that higher self, or that oversoul, now has the knowledge of good and evil, yet has everlasting life. And that is why the gods in this allegory of the Garden of Eden, this is why these oversouls, these gods that create souls and send them into lower realms, they have a knowledge of good and evil because they are given all of the experiences of every incarnation here. Yet they never partake of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, meaning that they never actually experience it themselves, yet they have a knowledge of it. Because when your particular incarnation is over, you are guided back into the tunnel of light. You are met by your oversoul, and you are embraced. And when that happens, everything that you had experienced is now given to that oversoul, and that oversoul has all of your experiences, and you, as that which acted for itself in the lower planes, never acts for itself again, ever, within time and space. What you perceived as yourself now shifts. The last thing I wanted to mention before I close this video is that Adam and Eve, in order for them to partake of, to be tempted and beguiled by DNA, in order for them to partake of the knowledge of the tree of good and evil and end up in this realm of perceptions of suffering and joy and being embodied in flesh, in order for them to do this, they must be beguiled. And they must also be created innocent souls. And that is why the 72 oversouls who do not want to experience the suffering themselves, that is why, in order for them to do this, they must create innocent souls out of the self, out of the metaphorical dust of the self or dust of the earth. And they must place them in an environment where the serpent exists, the DNA that they have also created in the lower realms. This is all part of a plan. They want the experience of these lower realms, but they don't want to experience it for themselves. They want everlasting life that they have been given. And so they create other souls in the same way that they were created by angels. We are all angels, but angels who never do this. And they place these new innocent souls into realms that they have created, where there is the serpent of DNA to beguile them. They are given half-truths. They are told, you are told as you are one of these metaphorical atoms. Before you were born, you are a metaphorical Adam and Eve. Each of us are. We are conceived in higher planes of the astrals by other souls. And we are told that we must bind ourselves to matter, and that in doing so, this is how it's done. We will gain the knowledge of good and evil just like the gods, be just like the gods. But as soon as that happens, they don't tell us that they bar the tree of everlasting life from us. They create pawns out of the self to probe the denser realms for them. And then when those experiences, those incarnations are over, what you are as a soul that acts for itself is then stripped from its individuality and given back to the oversoul that created you. And you can never act for yourself again within time and space. And all of your experiences are encoded on consciousness of your soul and given to that higher self that calls itself a higher self, which is just another soul. And in this way, they can experience and gain the knowledge of pain and suffering and joy of the lower realms, but not actually have to do it themselves. And this is an abuse of innocence, because you would have never been beguiled had you known what they knew. And that is why they had to create new souls in order to do this, new offspring. They had to do it to their children and then strip their children of eternal life in order for them to gain this experience without having to do it themselves.